Once again, another Aaron Dessner track. He's really eating up this second album here.
When I picture my hometown, there's a bronze spray tan statue of you. All that time you were throwing punches, I was building something. And I can't forgive the way you made me feel. Scream fuck you, aIMee, to the night sky as the blood was gushing. But I can't forget the way you made me heal.
I have to point out that this second half of the album is really gearing into that more country folk aspect of her discography. And I will say, she really said, I'm going to say thank you, aIMee, but I'm also going to make it very obviously clear that this is about Kim Kardashian. I'm going to make it very clear. She says, when I picture my hometown, there's a bronze sprayed tan statue of you and a plaque underneath it that threatens to push me down the stairs at our school. She's like, okay, you are the bully in my life. And it was always the same searing pain, but I dreamed that one day I could say, all the time you were throwing punches, I was building something. She's like, all this shit you put me through, I actually took and, did something with my life. And she says, and I can't forgive the way you made me feel, screamed, fuck you, aIMee, into the night sky as the blood was gushing. But I can't forget the way you made me heal. She's like, for all the pain you put me through, you also helped me work through some things. So.
It wasn't a fair fight or a clean kill each time that aIMee stomped across my grave. Everyone knows that my mother is a saintly woman, but she used to say she wished that she were dead.
She said, Andrea Swift hates your guts. Everyone knows that my mother is a saintly woman, but she used to say she wished that you were dead. I somehow thought she would reference Greek mythology here, but she said, I pushed each boulder up the hill. Your words are still ringing in my head. And it says, this is a reference to the story of Sisyphus, who in Greek mythology was forced to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity as punishment from the gods. I mean, what a song. See, I recently divided all of Taylor Swift's songs up into genres, and this album is confusing me because some of the songs I'm like, you should go under folk, like the folk alt album, but also maybe the country album, but also maybe the pop rock. I don't know. We'll see how I decide that.
There wouldn't be this if there hadn't been you. One day, your kid comes home singing a song that only us two is gonna know is about you.
I mean, she really said, and so I changed your name and any real defining clues, and one day your kid comes home singing a song that only us two is gonna know is about you. She's like, Kim, you're no longer, I've changed who you are in my story, and one day we both know North is gonna come home, or whoever's gonna come home, and they're gonna be singing my songs, and only you and I are gonna know who it's about. And she literally says that maybe you've reframed it and in your mind you never beat my spirit black and blue. I don't think you've changed much. But then again, she says, I can't forget the way you made me heal. It was, I wrote 1,000 songs that you find uncool, but I built a legacy which you can't undo. But when I count the scars, there's a moment of truth that there wouldn't be this if there hadn't been you. She's like, without all the shit you put me through, there's no way I would have been able to grow and create this legacy that I've built for myself. Finding the good and the bad. But up next, I believe, is Taylor Swift's shortest song that she's ever put out. I need to look at how long Now That We Don't Talk is, but this looks like it. And it says, I look in people's windows. And Taylor, what are we peeping Tom for? What are we doing this for? So this says this is Jack Antonoff, Patrick Berger, and it looks like it's going to be a more poppy sound, so.
I had died the tiniest death. I spied the catch in your breath. I'm afflicted by the night. I look in people's windows, chance fixed by rose golden glows. They have their friends over to drink nice wine. I look in people's windows in case you're at their table.
What now? Okay, I had died the tiniest death. I spied the catch in your breath. This is referring to the title track of, so this is referring to Evermore. Out, 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 northbound I got carried away as you boarded your train, south, south, south. A feather taken by the wind blowing, I'm afflicted by the not knowing, so I look in people's windows, transfixed by rose golden glows. They have their friends over to drink nice wine. I look in people's windows in case you're at their table. What if your eyes looked up and met mine one more time? So she's looking for someone that she wants to see again, or she wants to know how they're doing. But I'm a little confused as to who the muse of this song would be.
I still ponder what it meant. Now. Does it feel alright to not know me? I'm addicted to the if
I get the sentiment, and I think here I attend Christmas parties from outside. Like in Lover, she says we can leave the Christmas lights up to January. But yeah, and she says, does it feel all right to not know me? I'm addicted to the F only. So she's kind of talking about that point after being with someone for so long and how they can no longer know you. They become like a stranger whose laugh you could recognize anywhere. That one is going to be one that I have to sit on.
I caught lightning in a bottle, oh, but it's gone again. And it was written, I got cursed like Eve got bitten, oh, was it punishment? Please, I've been on my knees, change the prophecy. Don't want money, just someone who wants my company.
The second half, this double album is really exploring the can I ever break out of this cycle of like heartbreak? She literally says, I've been on my knees. Like she's begging, change the prophecy. I'm praying. Like, I don't want anything. I just want someone who loves me and who will stick around and stay. She's like, I'm looking in the sky and hoping for this to change. It's really the second half of the album is definitely a more pared back folk like sound. It definitely is very heavy on an Aaron Dessner-esque vibe because he was on a lot of these tracks, but damn.
Cards on the table, mind play out like fools in a fable, oh, it was sinking in, oh, slow is the quicksand, poison, blood from the wound of the pricked hand, oh, still I dream of him, and I sound like an infant, feeling like the very last drops of an ink pen, a greater woman stays cool, but I howl like a wolf at the moon, I'm just a paperweight in shades of grayish, spending my last coins so someone will tell me it'll be okay.
There was a lot said in that bridge there. There was a lot said. By the way, Zeus has decided to enter the chat. He's mad that I've kept him up all night. So, feeling like the very last drops of an ink pen, a greater woman stays cool, but I howl like a wolf at the moon and I look unstable, gathered with a coven round a sorcerer's table. This could be a callback to the Willow imagery with the coven and everything. A greater woman has faith, but even statues crumble if they're made to wait. So this is definitely the lyric that we got, one of the first lyrics we got at the TTPD installation in LA. But I'm so afraid I sealed my fate, no sign of soulmates, I'm just a paperweight in shades of grayish, spending my last coin so someone will tell me it'll be okay. She's like, I'm spending this money on therapy and going out and talking to these people who can just tell me that, yeah, you'll find love someday. Sure, it'll happen. Even though I haven't been able to actually make that happen. It's really kind of sad because she's just really in like a very desperate moment of like, when will I be able to find love again? Like, am I doomed to constantly repeat this cycle of heartbreak? But up next is another name of a person's name for a song, and that's Cassandra. Cassandra was written with Aaron Dessner, so let's see what it sounds like.
I was in my new house placing daydreams, 'cause that's where I was when I got the call. When it's burning the bitch that's shrieking, when the truth comes out, it's quiet. So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst, and tried to tell its own. So they filled my soul with snakes, I regret to say, do you believe me now?
This is another reflection on 2016. Zeusy baby, I can't play with you right now. We're fathoming lyrics. I'm sorry. It's interesting to me how she's really going back and like reflecting on the time, because we had Reputation and she did use a lot of the witch imagery here, and she says in the pre-chorus here, when it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking, and when the first stone's thrown, they're screaming in the streets, there's a raging riot. And she's kind of talking about how all of that, and she referred to her being, you know, like on a trial, like a witch trial in Reputation. And then she kind of talked about some of this post-Reputation in the albums after that, but I don't think she's really explored it as in-depth as she did in Reputation. So yeah, it's just interesting to me that she's really exploring these. I feel like she is releasing a lot of anger and a lot of retrospective. She especially says here, when she says, when the truth comes out, it's quiet. She's like, well, when the call finally came out, when they actually heard what actually happened, yeah. And then they said, so they filled my cell with snakes. I regret to say, do you believe me now? She's like, well, do you actually believe me now that you have the evidence that you wanted?
They say what doesn't kill you makes you aware. What happens if it becomes who you are?
Okay, so Cassandra is apparently a reference, A daughter of Priam endowed with the gift of prophecy, but fated never to be believed. I don't know. Is this a Greek mythology thing that I'm not aware of? Cassandra alludes to ancient Greek. See, I was getting ancient Greek vibes from this. Interesting to me. Yeah, and she said, I was in my tower weaving nightmares. Oh, this bridge sounds like it's about to be something. This is going to be one that I'm going to go back and revisit. It's interesting to me how Reputation was definitely a direct response to a lot of the things that went down in 2016. But like I said, she's really not explored this that much over the past few years. I mean, we've had subtle nods to it on albums like Folklore, like Clowns to the West, Robbers to the East, and stuff like that. And, exploring all that. But this is the first time where she's like really like working through the issues that came about on that, especially after everything that came out, because she said they knew the whole time that I was on to something. The family, the pure greed, the Christian chorus line, they all said nothing. She's like, everyone in who was around me said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. Bet they never spared a prayer for my soul. You can mark my words that I said it first, in a morning warning no one heard. She's like, I told you exactly what happened, but in the end, your money and your greed was nothing compared to like the truth. Whew, that's going to be one that has to come. And then up next is one that she wrote herself called Peter. And this one is interesting because we're getting a lot of religious imagery, both Greek mythology, a lot of references there, and then general Christian religion. So my guess is that Peter is going to have a lot of reference to Christian religion. So let's see where that takes us. This is definitely, I think, the thorough line that's getting me. And I think we've seen it, especially on this second part of the album. Because she's talked a lot, especially in the first part of the album. She explored anger and the breaks of trust and stuff like that. But this second part of the album, and especially in this song, because Peter, according to Genius, and it makes sense now that it's referring to Peter Pan, she talked in Would've, Could've, Should've, the loss of girlhood and loss of innocence. And she's exploring in this album a need to return to her childhood, and how you can definitely tell that youthfulness and that love of child's play and the fun and the games is something that she's like mourning the loss of. And she's like, when is it going to come back? Like, when is this going to come back? And it's kind of definitely getting me. It's just like, I don't know if it's just a certain moment in my life, but this one so far seems like it's going to be a bit sad. And sometimes it gets me when crossing your jet stream. We both did the best we could do underneath the same moon, a different galaxy. I have to point out here that she says in verse 2, and sometimes it gets me when crossing your jet stream. And in Call It What You Want on Reputation, she says, my babies fly like a jet stream. So it could be possibility that Peter, this like childhood, like youthful love, could be a metaphor for Joe, which is interesting to me because after going through and reading up on things, it definitely seems like a lot of, especially the original Tortured Poets Department, is exploring that sort of rebound relationship and that sort of like back and forth, like toxic, like bad boy thing with Maddie Healy. Whereas when we're seeing all these songs about Joe, to be fair, honestly, all the songs about Joe, now that I've gone through and fathom, are all sort of just like sad and somber and like an amicable split. Like, we had to leave. Like, it just came to a natural end. Like, we fell out of love. And that's interesting to me. She said, oh, we promised to love each other forever and we promised to grow up together. And it's just, we didn't grow up and we didn't grow together. And that's just like, all the songs about Joe are fucking sad. Like, Maddie Healy, like, they're sad, but like there's anger there. It's very obvious there's an anger and a tongue-in-cheek and sarcasm to those songs. Whereas like the songs that you like, we can tell like are about Joe and are that are most related to that relationship, those are just sad. Those are just like, we lost this. But it's interesting because if Midnight's is the breakdown of the relationship, and Midnight's itself was a general like mourning the relationship during its end. So by the time the Tortured Poets Department would have come around, they would have kind of already mourned the loss of the relationship. So Maddie Healy's like relationship would have been more at the forefront when writing this. That one just, what makes me think this is specifically about Joe is the lyric here. And you said you'd come and get me, but you were 25 and the shelf life of those fantasies has expired. Lost the Lost Boys chapter of your life. We know in Dancing with Our Hands Tied, 25 years old, how were you to know that Joe was 25 when they met? Yeah. It is interesting to kind of see the juxtaposition between Maddie Healy, Joe Alwyn songs of that breakup, and then seeing like sort of some of the songs that we see between that she's written by Travis, or that we've gotten from the Travis perspective. But up next is The Bolter, and this one is written with Aaron Dessner.
By all accounts, she almost drowned when she was 6 in frigid water. And I can confirm she made a curious child, ever reviled by everyone except her own father. Bestmates laughed, and they nicknamed her the Bolter. Always ends up with a town car speeding out to drive one evening. And they with the slam of the door, then he'll call her a whore, but she wouldn't be sore, but she was leaving. It felt like breathing.
What the hell is this song even about? It's my puppy, babes. It says here The Bolter is a reference to English writer Nancy Mitford and her novels The Pursuit of Love and so forth, and refers to the narrator Fanny's mother, who abandons her to be raised by her Aunt Emily so that she can continue indulging in her habit of serial monogamy. Oh, is this about her jumping from relationship to relationship? Like, is that what this means? Like, constantly going in and out? Zeus is determined to gather my attention, so here he is. And then it says, so she says, then she runs like it's a race behind her back. Her best mates laughed and they nicknamed her the Bolter. Started with a kiss, oh, we must stop meeting like this, but it always ends up with a town car speeding. Getaway car? Out the drive one evening. Ended with the slam of a door, then he'll call her a whore. Miss Ma'am, that was a choice. Wish he wouldn't be sore, but as she was leaving, it felt like breathing. All her fucking lives flashed before her eyes. It feels like the time she fell through the ice, then came out alive. So we're referencing Getaway Car and Clean here.
She's been many places with men of many faces. First they're off to her races, and she's laughing, drawing aces. But none of it is changing, that the chariot is waiting. Hearts are hers, but a breaking. There's escape in escaping.
This is another interesting one because on Midnights, where she had You're on Your Own Kid, which is a retrospective on her career, this one definitely feels like a retrospective on all of her past relationships. In the bridge, she said she's been many places with many faces. First they're off to the races and she's laughing, drawing aces, but none of it is changing. That the chariot is waiting, hearts are hers for the break-in. There's an escape in escaping. She's like, there's an escape in escaping bad situations and these bad relationships. It's very interesting. All right, so we're on the second to last track titled Robin. It's a 4-minute track, and this one was written with Aaron Dessner.
Long may you reign, you're an animal. You are bloodthirsty. Showmanship to keep it for you in sweetness. Way to go, tiger.
Genius is pointing out that there's a lot of references to Mirrorball, with obviously the circus, but it said Way to Go Tiger could maybe be a callback to Christopher Robin, which, if you don't know anything about that, is, you know, Winnie the Pooh, like a very much showed childhood-like younger self. So this could be a callback to her younger self, and we've seen her explore like childhood and like the end or the promise of childhood nostalgia in this second half of the album, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what she's looking at here.
You got the dragonflies above your butt.
See, I get the lullaby quality of this, and you can just tell from all the lyrics that she is kind of reminiscing on her childhood and like telling her younger self to just like live in the moment, that the time for mean and cruel, the time will arrive for the cruel and the mean. You'll learn to bounce back just like your trampoline, but now will curtail your curiosity and sweetness. She's like, all these things that you want out of life, these things that you're pursuing, just take the time now to like reminisce on the youth and the fun and your youthful self. It's interesting how she kind of really is reflecting on her youth in this album. But up next is the final track, a self-written track, and that is the manuscript.
And then she rereads the manuscript of the entire torrid affair. He said that if the sex is half as good as the conversation was, soon they'd be pushing strollers. But soon it was over.
What the? Now and then she rereads the manuscript of the entire torrid affair. They compared their licenses. He said, I'm not a donor, but I'd give you my heart if you needed it. Oh my gosh. She rolled her eyes and said, you're a professional. He said, no, just a good Samaritan. So he's just kind of being like, he's like feeding her some pickup lines, like this little affair that's going on. And this fucking audacity. He said that if the sex was half as good as the conversation was, soon they'd be pushing strollers, but soon it was over. What? Why would you say that? My fucking God, Min.
At the age of him, she wished she was 30. She thought about how he said since she was so wise beyond her years, everything had been above board. She wasn't sure.
No, do not tell me this is what I think it is. Do not tell me this is about. If it's about John Mayer. In the age of him, she wished she was 30 and made coffee every morning in a French press. Afterwards, she only ate kids' cereal and couldn't sleep unless it was in her mother's bed. She's like, I wish I was an adult and I was 30, but I'm like this. Then she dated boys who were her own age with dartboards on the back of their doors. So this is implying that the person she's with is not her age, that they might be beyond. Then this audacity. She thought about how he said since she was so wise beyond her years, everything had been above board. She wasn't sure. This is would've, could've, should've 2.0, just with the general sadness. Seriously, you're so wise beyond your years. You're so mature for your age. And everything was above board, like it was appropriate. It's so interesting to me because especially through the process of re-recording Speak Now TV, she would have to relive that relationship and everything she wrote about John Mayer, and we can see that in the would've, could've, should've. And it makes me so sad to see you can definitely tell that through this re-recording process and through the past couple of years within the relationship with Joe and like working through post-pandemic and stuff like that she's been working through some things. And especially here it says, now and then I reread the manuscript that the story isn't mine anymore. And it says here that this person who's on Genie says this could be a speculation that this could be reference to the story of us. Because, in the TTPD installation in LA, there was a storybook with the words us on it. And the fact that the original album ended with this bonus track, this was the original bonus track we were given the manuscript. It's interesting to me talking about all of the things from her past that were screaming at her could have been this the entire time. And now she's basically saying, I'm putting this chapter, the story of us, is officially and finally closed. Like the end should have been years ago, but the end is actually now. And the fact that that's how that ends, I don't know how to be, if I should be sad or like this is a very bittersweet note, I feel like, for this to end on. This second album that we got is definitely interesting to see what didn't make it on the original album, because I feel like the Tortured Poets Department, the OG collection of 16 songs, was definitely highlighting that specific heat of the moment relationship, and that time period at the beginning of the Eras tour when she was with Maddie Healy and going through and processing these emotions. I think that was very much so highlighted during that first album, whereas the second album is really exploring a lot more things outside of it. She's exploring the relationship with Maddie again, but she's also looking at the relationship with Joe, the relationship with Travis, and her relationship with a lot of things. She's essentially talking about, okay, we talked about this one moment in time, but now I'm going to tell you about all the moments in time that really affected me. And this second half of the album was very much so a very broad retrospective on things. Like, it was essentially, it felt like this was a truly, like, the second album was truly like, I am processing the shit that I've been through. And as of now, this is what my tentative final ranking of the second album is. I don't know how this is going to work out, because the manuscript just like really like personally struck something in me that's like making me want to cry. So I don't know if I have like a particular favorite right now. Thank You aIMee was a fun one, and then Cassandra, that one definitely interested me. But let me know what your favorite song on this second half of the album was. Which album is your favorite, the original one or the secondary one that we got, and what is your ranking?